My name is Josefina Bittar, and I'm a linguistics PhD candidate at the University of New Mexico. In this video, I will talk about my research on borrowing in Paraguayan Guarani. Paraguayan Guarani is spoken in Paraguay, a country in South America with about 7 million people. One of the reasons Paraguay is linguistically interesting is that more than 0.5% of its population is bilingual in Guarani, the native language, and in Spanish, the colonizer language. So you can also see here that 29% of the population claims to be monolingual in Guarani, and 10% of the population claims to be monolingual in Spanish. Now, Paraguayan Guarani belongs to the Tupi-Guarani family, but it's different from the other Tupi-Guarani languages in that its speakers are non-indigenous, and this language is preferred in most rural areas of the country, but it is also widely and frequently used in urban areas. It's been co-official with Spanish since 1992. You can see the cover of the Constitution in Guarani here to the left. It's been taught in schools, mostly as a second language, since the educational reform of 1994. Now, because these two languages have been in contact for 500 years, there's a lot of borrowing between the languages. So, borrowing is when a characteristic from one language is borrowed by another language. And languages can borrow words, languages can borrow sounds, and they can borrow grammatical features of another language. Many scholars talk about these linguistic levels. So they talk about phonology being independent from morphology, and morphology being independent from grammar, and so on, right? So that's why they also claim lexical borrowing is one thing, and then a separate phenomena is grammatical borrowing. And these two are independent. These are completely separate. Now, what happens when you look at sentences in Paraguayan Guarani is that you often see this. So here you have the sentence, I didn't complain about my children. You see in bold quejar, which comes from quejar, quejarse in Spanish, which means to complain. And of course, it's a lexical borrowing. But you also see this J here in orange that seems to be replicating me in the quejaba, and then in green you see we, which seems to be replicating this de that usually comes after quejarse in Spanish. Right? So for me, saying that it's lexical borrowing is not enough, and saying it's grammatical borrowing is also not enough. And seems like there's a more interesting explanation here for when these phenomena happen. So I look at different characteristics of both Spanish and Guarani, and one of them is interesting to me, which is the way that Spanish treats objects that are human, or that refer to human beings. In Spanish, when you have an object that does not refer to a human being, you don't need an a, right? So you have here, I left my food in the kitchen. Of course, my food here is the object of the sentence, and you don't see an a there because my food, of course, doesn't refer to human beings. But it's different when you talk about leaving your children in the kitchen, right? I left my children in the kitchen. Here, you do see this a because the object refers to human beings. So Guarani does something similar with pe. And it is said that pe is a grammatical borrowing from Spanish. right? Because it didn't appear, it's not mentioned in old texts written in Guarani. Now here you can see the sentence, don't you punish your child, your child is followed by this pe, that is indicating that there's a human object in the sentence. Now, here you can also see this word that means child, membu. I didn't really want to leave my child, but you don't see this pe. So if this sentence was in Spanish, you would see an a, but here in Guarani, you don't see this pe, right? So I wanted to know what would predict the use of pe, because this is the same speaker. So these two sentences were said by the same speaker, and in one of them she used pe, in the other one she didn't, even when we're talking about the same, it's the same word, right, child. So I hypothesize the following, that when there is a verb alone in the sentence, then pe will be more likely to occur, right? So here you see this pe in the second sentence because the verb in the sentence is alone from Spanish, right? It comes from, it's castigar, it comes from Spanish castigar, to punish. Okay, so how do I test this? So I collect data, I go to different settings. I've been to Asuncion, the capital of Paraguay, and also I've been to the more rural areas of the country, talked to women, talked to men, and to people as young as 18 and as old as 85. And I talk to them for about an hour long, and they talk about it's a free topic. So here I collected interviews in Asuncion, the capital of Paraguay, in 2015, okay, with a member of the community. This is Bañado Sur, is a neighborhood where Guarani is the preferred language. And this is San Juan Nepomuceno in Casapa, is about 250 kilometers from Asuncion. I also went there with a member of the community, and we interviewed many people. So after we interview people, and then of course these interviews have to be transcribed, and that takes a lot of time. And then after these interviews are transcribed, then I extract the sentences that I need. Of course, in this case, because I was looking at objects that refer to human beings, then I extracted all the sentences that had objects that refer to human beings. And so the main question here is, when is pe more likely to occur? And of course, I hypothesized that it was more likely to occur when there was alone, and when the verb in the sentence was alone from Spanish. But that did not seem to be the case. The actual significant factor was H, and it was highly significant. So the younger the speaker, the more they use pe. And I'm still trying to figure out why that happens. So this might have to do with contact with Spanish as well, because younger speakers, they are more bilingual, they speak more Spanish than their older peers. So what I would like my research to contribute with a theory, of course, of linguistics, but I would also contribute with documentation of how people actually speak Paraguayan Guarani. I am building this corpus, this database of different people speaking the language. I also want to question the need of this lexical versus grammatical borrowing distinction, and propose that we should look at, we should use a more holistic approach when we talk about borrowing. We shouldn't look at grammar on one side and the lexical lover on the other side, right? Because these two are not independent. And of course, one of my main ambitions is to change the perception of loans in Paraguayan Guarani, because a lot of people sometimes think that people use words from Spanish because they don't know the native counterpart, which it isn't, but it's not at all the case, right? So I have a lot of people that I want to thank. So of course my advisor, Dr. Rosa Vallejos and Antonio Sena and his family, who welcomed me in San Juan Nepomuceno, Israel, who took me to Bañado Sur, and I met a lot of wonderful people. And of course the Latin American Iberian Institute for partially funding my research. And if you have comments or questions, you can email me. Thank you very much.